and it's Valentine's Day, the 14th of Feb. In early spring, there are lots of trees like the Cornus Mas and quince, lots of shrubs and trees that flower in very early spring. And the Cornus is one of them. This is the ordinary Cornus Mas or cornelian cherry. Look at how beautiful the flowers are. Beautiful yellow flowers. There is also another Cornus, the Cornus, I think it's a Japonica, the Japanese Cornus. That's also got beautiful flowers, slightly larger flowers than this. These plants have a long history. When I came here in 1986, I purchased about 100 trees and planted it in the field. And then about maybe 15 years ago, I dug it up because they were getting too big, and I put them in pots. And of course they're so big, look at it. They've rooted into the ground. They've all rooted into the ground. Hard to get it out. So you must be wondering what we do with these. When you come to the nursery, you will always find trees that are partly trained. I call them partly trained trees. We don't train all our trees because if I train all the trees, people lose interest. People like to buy it because they like to do it themselves. So I'm going to take some of these back into the nursery and show you what we can do with these. I will just pick some of these at random and we'll take it into the nursery. Quite a few to choose from. I will choose some interesting ones. That's number 3. Here's another one for you. So I've chosen 5, so we're going to take 5 of these in. I brought 5 of these Cornus Mas or cornelian cherry into the workshop area, and I'm going to show you what we will do with them. So as I told you, we put these in pots about 10 or 15 years ago, and they were standing in that area for maybe about the last 5 years. And of course the roots grow through the pot and into the soil. And once it does that, it makes the tree grow stronger again, but it makes it very hard to get out of the pots. Look at all the roots there. Look at all that. So the first thing we do is we get one of our old saws, and let me get this out of the way. And because I'm right-handed, I'm going to cut from this side, and I'm going to cut with the saw. This is an easy one. Some of them are really hard. So this is done. I'll see if it comes out. These old saws are very useful for this purpose. Let's see if it can come out now. Doesn't. There you are, that came out. Now, this came out easily. Some of them are really, really difficult. Now, I've already done some before I brought them into the workshop, but I'm just showing you what we normally go through. It's not all that plain sailing. Now that's another big lump. Look at that. That's all root over there. And the roots are really, really thick. So the best way to get it out is with the old saw. Sometimes I use a rocker. Oh, that wasn't too difficult. Sometimes again, look, some of these big roots here. When these big roots are there, it makes it impossible to get out of the pot. So we use, this is called a Japanese root cutter. It's not a branch cutter, it's just a root cutter. You get them in various sizes, and it really helps you cut the root quite easily. And once it clears the holes, the drainage holes, then the tree should be able to come out. So again, to reinforce, a lot of people just cut the pots and dispose of the pots, but I've always been frugal. I don't like to waste anything because every pot costs money to buy, so I save the pots. So why get rid of it when you can save it? So let's see if it can come out now. There you are, that's come out. Okay, so now that we've got them all out of the pots, we will show you what we do with them. So we have our 5 cornices that we will be working on, and hopefully every single tree will be different. So begin with, we've taken the trees out of the pots. We have to cut all the roots, all the heavy roots that came through the pot, and let's see what lies underneath. So we always explore the root base because the roots are such an important part of a bonsai that the roots determine the front or the back of the tree, and it also gives great character. See, just digging a bit deeper, you see these beautiful roots are hidden. Sometimes, of course, you get ugly roots, but then you can always improve it if they're ugly. But that's beautiful there. That's very beautiful. And you see the soil we're growing in. I'm not pretending that we grow in any fancy soil. This is just rubble and mud, for want of a better word. And these trees are growing quite happily in that. So when we talk of putting all these fancy bonsai soils, okay, for the good specimens, but for ordinary trees that are grown in flower pots, we don't really bother much about the soil. I know people are going to criticize me for it, but you can see this speaks for itself. My trees speak for themselves. Okay, so that's got a lovely root base there. So let's determine what should be the front, what should be the back. Again, if we tease some more, this is also a very beautiful root there. So this could possibly be a front. Now, although I've kept it that tall, I did say right at the outset that we keep these trees partly trained because when people come, they like to make the choice. If I work on the trees too much, this is why people don't understand what we do on the nursery. If I work on the tree too much, they lose interest and they say, oh, I didn't get a chance to put my own imprint on it. So let's look at this tree. Straight away, if I use this as the front, although the roots are not that good, I could get a very nice tree just from the front portion. And if I can find my white bag, I will do the bag trick. So I'm going to do the white bag trick or the handkerchief trick. In this day and age we don't use handkerchiefs, but back in the 70s and 80s when we used handkerchief, we used to bring out a handkerchief and do that. So if we do that and cut the tree here, I've got a beautiful thick trunk and a very nice bendy trunk, almost like a trident maple. So that is one possibility. I'm not saying that's the only possibility because every tree has got many, many possibilities. Now this is also very nice because the root spread is very nice. So if I use this as the front, I could probably keep that as the leader or come back on itself, keep that as the leader. But let's shorten the branches, because if we shorten the branches, I will get a much better idea as to where I'm going. Now I know that the dogwood has got very, very hard wood, and even my loppers may not be able to cut it easily. So I'm going to cut it with a saw, these silky saws. What a waste to grow all that, but I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to use these for Japanese flower arranging. Let's cut this one to see. You notice that I cut straight. A lot of people asked, do I make a sloping cut to create a new leader? I find that if you make a sloping cut, the surface of the sloping cut is much bigger than the surface of a straight cut. And if you have more surface area, there's more transpiration or loss of moisture, and the tree could suffer. So for that reason, I usually only do a surface cut. Now the other option is, if you wanted to make a tall bonsai, you would keep most of that. Again, you put the bag here again. The more you look, the more options there are. Now, you could have a tall tree like this, but you got to ask yourself, would it look nice? Some people think it's nice, but not everyone would think it's nice. I prefer a shorter, stumpier tree. If it's too tall, the proportions may get lost. It won't emphasize the thickness of the trunk. So for my money, I wouldn't do that if I kept this side. But I'm still drawn to using this as the front of the tree. So if I use this as the front of the tree, I'm thinking in my mind, I should think aloud and tell you what I'm thinking. Either use this or use this. If I cut it there, it'll go that way. If I cut it there, it'll go back this way. Right. Now let's shorten this and see what this looks like. So that's looking like this. The Nebari is not so good from this side. It make a very nice stumpy tree like that. Or we could cut it back this way and get the taper there. Very difficult decision, very difficult decision. Let me just cut this off and see what happens. Of course, when you do a lot of this cutting, you've got to be careful you don't get carried away, because you get carried away, you end up with nothing. So already it's beginning to look something multi-trunk. In fact, you do get oak trees which look like this. Maybe you're saying I'm chicken and I'm not taking decisions, but I may put it in a plastic bonsai training pot like this and then let it grow and then let the customer make the final choice. At least I've made it look more like a bonsai now. So we'll put this aside for putting in a pot, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's in a pot. So that's the first one done. Now, let me show you one that I did last year. This was only done last year. So you can see where all the cuts were made. Last year, it was one of these tall 3-foot high trees. And what I did here was to cut hard back. Let's get some of the rubbish off. Again, you see all the rubber I use for planting. If we see what the front would look like. I know that you tell me that I should show you the boring stuff. I always feel guilty showing some of these mundane tasks. So boring. There's a story behind these Cornus trees, because when we first came to the nursery in 1985-86, I didn't import trees for maybe the first 2 years, so everything we sold from the nursery had to be grown here. So we bought these as young plants, no thicker than a finger, and we planted 100 of these in the ground to thicken up, and then they grew into huge bushes. I had to cut them hard back, so they've had lots of cutting around for the last, God knows how many years, maybe last 34 years. course they were put in pots, and that's when the growth slowed down a bit. So what I did last year, I will show you now that I've got it down to this level. So last year I cut a big branch from here, and then I cut another big branch from there. And by cutting it, this is literally called the cut and go method, isn't it? If you think of it, it is the classic cut and go method. So by doing that, I managed to get this lovely angular shape. And although this is growing this way, it's in the shade, it's growing this way. So just to emphasize what the ancient Chinese used to do, cut and grow was simply, if you cut here, the tree will grow there, you cut there, it'll grow there, you cut here, it'll grow there. So this is how cut and grow was done. So when you hear the term cut and grow, this is what we mean. So by cutting and growing, you get the tree to grow in precisely the correct direction you want. And then just to complete the process, I'll just do a little bit of wiring to show you how we complete the tree. Now again, let's do the 2 branch principle. This will guide the branches in the right direction. I can assure you that this is such a prolific tree that in one season you can get branches about 90 centimeter or more long. And if you keep pruning the ends, you get lots of ramification as well. So I've only put 2 pieces of wire. You can see that's the start of a lovely little Cornus bonsai, kept to that size. So that's no more than about 25-30 centimeter. Okay, so that's number 2. Now let's look at number 3. When you look at the jungle like that, you often wonder what can you make out of it. But if you analyze the tree, you will see that there is a lot of potential. And trees are like people, you know, everyone has potential, and it's about bringing out the potential that bonsai is all about. And that's why bonsai is so fascinating for me. This is a piece of weed, and if you know your weeds, this is dock. Absolute pest. Look at it, look at the technique. Weeds and all. This is the side of bonsai that is not so glamorous. Lots of weeds. But as they say, if you have a lot of weeds, then it's a sign of good soil or healthy trees, healthy environment. After all, weeds are plants, and the fact that they are weeds, we call them weeds, but they're very beautiful plants. And this plant, for instance, I've just noticed, let me take it out carefully, I might even make a marmite tree out of it. I don't know what this weed is called. I do know it flowers. I remember years ago at my early Chelsea flower show, I used to put little dandelions in pots, and everyone used to laugh, but little did I realize that that was the start of making these lovely accent plants. That was in 1982, 83. And after that, everyone started copying me. I pulled out that weed, and look at that lovely, it's got a woody stem. And I'm just trying to show you how I perceive beauty. Look at that lovely thing. If I put this in a little marmy pot, it would make a delightful little bonsai. Look at that. And that's just a weed. That's just a weed. And we keep that. I'm not so sure about this piece of dock. Oh God. Like a parsnip. With dock you've got to get every little root out, because it will grow again if you leave it behind. Now with this tree, because I've been cutting it over many years, you look at the beautiful gnarled effect you get by constant cutting, and this gives character to the trunk. But the thing is, do I want to keep it a big bonsai or not? Well, there are certain trees, this red label by the way, someone reserved the tree but they didn't come and pick it up. So a lot of people spot these lovely things but they don't come back to buy it. Anyway, too bad. Now, I don't need this piece, so let's see if I can do something else. Rather than cut it off, I'm going to use a rather crude method and rip it off. Perhaps I'm not strong enough. I'll get Jack to hold it. Let me just swap cameras. Stamp it nearer the junction there. Okay, all right, we ripped it. Okay, let's put it back on the turntable. So sometimes you can just rip a branch and you get this very nice torn texture. So again, every tree has more than one option. So what is the option for this one? If I keep it as a tall tree, I can just see what it looks like. Let's do a bit of pruning. There's some flower buds there, flower buds here. So I think if we put this in a bonsai pot, this would look quite credible as a tallish bonsai, which will be covered with flower. And if you didn't want to, you could cut there to get a new taper. So this is possible as a front. If we use this side, this is also quite nice with that torn effect. We can tear it all the way down. But my personal taste is that this would be too tall for a bonsai. So I prefer a much shorter tree. So although this is a possibility, I'm not entirely happy with it. So let's see. This could pass off as a tall bonsai. So the other possibility, as I said, would to make it short. And if you make it short, you will just cut it down to there and let everything grow again. But because we've already got some short ones, I will just keep this long to see when it's potted up what it would look like. So just for the heck of it, I'm going to keep this a tall tree because we don't want everything to look short. Okay, now that was number 3. We got number 4. So let's pull the weeds out again. Now this is a multi-trunk tree, and because it's got multiple trunks, I'm going to try and save the multiple trunks, because you don't often get multiple trunk situations. So let's see what happens if we make this a multi-trunk tree. Even a small branch like that is so hard to bend, let alone cut. Let's cut it with saw. Because it's bending inwards, I don't want that. So this tree looks quite nice this way. So if we view it from here, we can see 3 trunks, but in effect there are 4 trunks. If I look at it like this, it's got, see, that one is not really visible. Right, let me just cut it and see what happens. I'll just put my glove on. So again, to re-emphasize what I said, if you leave it unchecked, they grow tall. They grow very, very tall. So gradually reduce the height. Dogwoods, incidentally, grow all over the world. And in the United States, they have many varieties of dogwood which are very, very interesting. So this is dogwood. I don't know where this originates from. Maybe China, because there are quite a few oriental dogwoods as well. The Cornus family. So I'm again showing you technique more than anything else. Now this looks rather awkward over there. So I've got to ask myself, do I need it or not? Maybe cut it a bit short. These are rather nice branches, but I'm sure they'll grow very rapidly again. So I've got it down to this size. So you can see the effect of scale. Having it short gives you a better sense of scale. And the roots from this side are very nice, so I'm inclined to use this as a front. If I turn it to this side is also nice, but I don't think it's as nice as the other side. And I just noticed something. If you come close, look at these bits of driftwood. This is all naturally occurring driftwood. I've done nothing to it. They've all grown or developed naturally from dead branches which were left on the trees. So this is natural driftwood. So I've still got to decide which to use as the front, this side or the other side. So I think this is very straight from here. So I think I will not use this side, but use the other side. So if I don't use this side, I will get rid of this. Maybe even do a bit of driftwood. Tear the wood rather than cut it. So rather than make a straight clean cut, I'll partly cut it. Oh, God, and broke it. So the other driftwood. And then I will gradually let this rot, and that will become a bit of gin. And I will show you the progress of these trees as they develop through the summer. So this is what I've done to it. So although I'm going to show you the after effects in say 3 or 6 months time, I'll show you how these are potted up before I finish the video. Again, I don't want to just do a straight cut. Let me just do some fancy stuff. I'm just experimenting, always experimenting with different things. So this is it. This is in proportion to the height of the tree. So that is that one. So that's number 4. And now we've got number 5. This is a rather grand tree. And when I see material like this, there are so many possibilities. And looking at this lumpy bit, this is what they call inverse taper, thicker here than thick there. I could, if I had the patience, air layer this tree and get a very nice bonsai from this part. Let me just cut some of these other branches off. I think I'll bring the lopper, just bear with me. Keep look. So this top part, what a shame, cutting all these lovely flowers off. But don't worry, they produce flowers from the current season's wood. So the shoots that are produced this year, or even over 2 years, they will produce the flowering shoots. So this could be air layered. So we could air layer this there and get a nice little tree from that part. And the other option is, because this has got a very angular line, it's not often that you make literati trees from deciduous material. If I wanted to make a literati, I could also try and do it, and I could just remove this part and take the tree all the way up as far as it'll go. Again, if we use the bag trick, you can see what I mean. You can see that lovely line. That's a lovely literati line. So that's also a possibility. So people who come to buy these partly trained trees, they have so many different options. So that is, you can air layer at the same time and also create something unusual like the literati. But I can't get it out of the pot. Now let me just cut the root from here. The roots are really so vigorous. A lot of people will just chop these plastic pots up. I don't want to. I reckon on our nursery we use these pots maybe about 5 or 6 times before they're eventually dumped. So let's see if I can get it out of the pot now. Success. Now, then teasing the base, let's see what we've got here. Unfortunately, there's a lump here, which is almost like an inverse taper over there. It's thicker here. So we may need to do something to that if we were to use the whole height of the tree. I don't know whether I should spend time air layering. I've got so many trees. So we have a difficult decision to make. I can either cut it down to make a short tree up to here, or I can keep it as a tall tree up to here. Let me do that just to show you. Let it grow again, and if I was patient I will air lay that, and then I'll get another tree from there. So this one I won't complete because I do want to exercise some patience. It's very tempting to just cut it, but that's too nice to waste. So I'm going to air lay this so that I can get another tree. So I'll show you the progress of these trees during the year. But the next thing will be to show these in pots. So these are the branches that we've cut off, and I'm going to keep these for flower arranging. So this is the finished product of that short dogwood. So let's put in a pot with a bit of rock. These rocks, by the way, they're not rocks. It is a bit of tar macadam, you know, the tar from the road. And some of our colleagues are very good at using this stuff, and it just adds a little bit of spice to an otherwise not very interesting tree. And this one we decided, because we were going to air layer the top, we put it back in the flower pot and let it grow again. So I'm just showing you what we ended up with. This is the other one. I kept it tall deliberately because I didn't want everything to be short. And this little fellow here, we'll let the new branches grow. The surface roots are quite nice. And this one has been put in a mica pot. So I will take some shots later in the year when the leaves have come out to show you the progress of the trees. But suffice to say, this is all in about an hour's work. So we worked on 5 trees, and this is a lovely species with beautiful flowers. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. This is just the addendum to the video I was doing on the Cornus Mas. If you remember, I pulled out a weed from one of the pots. This is the weed that I pulled out, and here we are. This is the little weed that I've been saving to put into this little pot, and you will agree with me that it certainly looks a credible bonsai. There you are.